Let's see, are there any books I missed on this case of memoir? Talked at length about the My Struggle books, which I love. I love this book design. Yeah, wraparound cover. Yeah, love it, love it, love it. Great font, great presentation. I've read some of these essays. This is a very, current, au courant, modern cultural essays. Essayists in the tradition of Joan Didion. Kind of book read by people who live in New York and buy new books all the time. On the fringes of the physical world. I grabbed this for its title and premise. One of the great memoirs of our time. Probably for that quote, too. New York Times Book Review. Pretty sure that's not the Paul Johnson I used to know in Alaska. Chronicles of Wasted Time. I wonder how serious that title is. Because that could be a tragic story, honestly. Like Remains of the Day. Look at this beautiful work. Wow. Big C by Langston Hughes. That's a gorgeous copy. Autobiography. This was in Garden City, New Jersey's high school. Back in 1940. Dang, this thing could go antique. Oh, weird. This is the 10th printing. Wait, from when? Oh, 1977. Sometimes seeing the printing is so disappointing because you think you have a really old book and you're like, wow. Nope. Still, that's 2 years before I was born. My whole life, this book was existing at the same time. There could be a dual biography of the two of us, like a split-screen movie. But why would there be? Or any book that was as old or older than me. I don't know, I think about that stuff with objects sometimes, it's weird. I still sometimes regret that I didn't run away from home in high school and camp out in support of her. I thought she was so awesome, living in that tree to save the redwoods. I gotta read this sometime. If you live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's this amazing folk art place up in the mountains east of here called Tinkertown. It's incredible, built by this great guy, Ross Ward. There's an incredible memoir by his daughter leaving Tinkertown. This is fantastic, Tanya Ward Goodman. His son has had a great band in Albuquerque, Sad Baby Wolf, with Marty from the Shins. And I've been friends with Carla, Ross Ward's widow, who still runs the place. They sell my book at the gift shop there. That's nice. Anyway, if you go to Tinkertown, there's this sailboat parked behind it, and this book tells the story of it. And it was Ross Ward's brother-in-law, I think. And he went all the way around the world on a sailboat in this huge journey. And all the exploits are written up and painted up on signs all around the boat, and it really fills me with wanderlust and a desire to hit the sea when I, like an old-timey sailor, whenever I see that boat on the tour. The rest of the place is really cool too. Ross Ward was a former carny, and he was an amazing folk artist, and he just carved and assembled this place. It's amazing. You can still see, if you recognize his style, you can still see hand-painted signs of his at businesses all around the mountains and abandoned properties. He's had a legacy. But this guy, what an interesting story. It will fill you with wanderlust. I love this book. If you have that aspect of yourself that you like thinking about dropping out of society and sailing around the world and having adventures and stuff like that, check it out. I do love that quote about the person who doesn't read has only one life, and the person who reads has thousands. Nonfiction can, you can share someone's experience a little bit. I find this a very fascinating hybrid work, and I like it. Did I finish it? I think I did, yeah. When I was reading about Virginia, I read this. She was a controversial figure because her subject of documentation, and she's a photographer and writer, mostly a photographer, but look at this great cover. Partial wraparound. And love that sky spilling over onto the spine. That's great. But it's called Hold Still because she's a photographer, etc. But she makes her family her subject, and she really, I don't know. Yeah, she gets interesting criticism for her work. They have no privacy. They have no lives of their own. And she doesn't care if they're, swimming naked or, when they're little kids, etc. And people are yeah, she's gotten all kinds of criticism, and she writes about it in this book. But this is a great and interesting portrait, and it's a hybrid work. It's like a nonfiction W.G. Sebald in that it has photos nestled throughout the text. But she comments on the photos a little more than Sebald might ever have. And but this book has really stayed with me, and I have tons of work that mixes visual and photographic now. I read this when I was writing my script for miniseries, What We Found When We Walked Across America. It's also a chapter in my giant 2-volume, 60-chapter work. Wait, one of your chapters is a 500-page miniseries script? Yeah. It's kind of a 4,000-page 2-volume work, or close to it anyway. Anyway, this is a very good book. I enjoyed it. It's a good memoir. She's an interesting figure. After I read this, I was like, I want to make the neighborhood my unit of composition and really document a neighborhood. At the time I was living in a suburban neighborhood, and I just have a lot of thoughts about the suburbs. I feel like I could have made a really interesting documentary by filming at all hours, Monet style, like at all times. And I still might do a neighborhood project sometime. I'm in another interesting neighborhood now. This is an old POW memoir. I think it was really hyped by like Reader's Digests or book clubs or something like that back in the day, because I've seen it a lot in old-timey houses. I remember seeing it a lot when I was growing up in different people's houses. And now you never see it. She wrote Land Below the Wind and 3 came out. Agnes Newton Keith. 1942. So I think she was in copyright 1946 and 1947. So she was imprisoned in Borneo. Well, this book was very popular in my house growing up. Everyone read it and thought it was crazy. It's awesome. I mean, it's really amazing to read like a heist or an escape or that kind of story, and everything they did there for basic survival in this camp was like toward some sort of a life-saving innovation. Like they built a radio out of scraps. Like they had expert radio engineers with them as prisoners, and so like they literally were like using like bits of foil and things like that they found to build this thing, and they did. And they had secret news. It's a pretty incredible story. I've often thought about rereading this as an adult. I've kept it for that reason. I don't have a lot of modern celebrity memoir type books, but I picked this up because that guy makes me laugh consistently, and he's been in many animated shows that I think are so clever, like Dr. Katz and home movies. Bob's Burgers, of course, and others. I mean, he's just a really funny vocal talent. Praise for failure is an option. Thank you for sending me a copy of the book, Amy Miller. We'll try to get a quote back to you soon, David Cross. Anderson Cooper's out of office. Well, I like to know pop culture stuff, so I like to know about creators of work I enjoy and like. And some voice artists are real talents, like this guy and what's his name? The voice of Jake in Bender the Robot. John DiMaggio. He's brilliant. When he talks about it, it's like listening to a high-level artist talk about their art. Maria Bamford is also awesome. She does like so many side characters on Adventure Time. And this book kind of shaped my life. 10 Million Steps by Nimble Nomad. It's pretty much a printed out, transcribed journal, lightly edited. But he wasn't the first person to hike from Key West, Florida to Cape Gaspé, Quebec along the Appalachian mountain chain. For the most part, he was the second after this guy, John Brinda. But he kind of really promoted the idea of it as an Eastern Continental Trail, a super trail to comprise the Florida Trail, 2 or 3 smaller trails, the Appalachian Trail, and the International Appalachian Trail. And since he started that, the trail has been expanded to follow Appalachian mountain geology over to Newfoundland and then over to Europe. And I think that's stupid. I mean, it's cool that that trail is there, but they should call it a different name because the trail was already established. And like, I was considered part of the first group that hiked it. No, we didn't really do the Eastern Continental Trail because we had to leave the established trail because of an injured hiker with severe tendonitis in his feet and push him in a wheelchair across the state of Virginia. And that got us off into back roads and going through big cities and so on. And we were a charity hike. And so we weren't always on trails. And we made our own route. And that makes it shorter. Whatever. I have no regrets about that trip. I'm glad we did it. And like the way we did it made it our own. It was not an insular journey at all. It was more like Peter Jenkins' A Walk Across America than Bill Bryson's A Walk in the Woods. It wasn't a trail experience. But we did have a chapter of that. Anyway, Nimble Nomad's a great guy. Eb Eberhardt is his real name. I think he has a new name now. Sunny. Sunny. He recently became the oldest person to ever hike the Appalachian Trail. in his 80s and made national news. I was like, I know that guy. We stayed with him in Georgia. He's so interesting. But because of this book and a GeoCities website, an old school GeoCities website he had back in the day, covered in moving images, my younger sibling got the idea of doing this hike across the country, brought it to me and a proactive friend, and went from there. Anyway, always hold on to this book because he gave this to my parents a long time ago, 2001. What an incredible odyssey your sons are on. I'm so proud of them. Great meeting you and sharing time at Knowles Gap. I can't remember what his voice sounds like. Not like that. Anyway. Yeah. He's great, though. He would just like do poems. When we encountered him on the trail for the first time, he was walking south in Florida on another trip. He was really like doing the Eastern Continental Trail up. We ran into him and he just stopped and like performed a poem in the middle of the trail. Super cool guy. Now I think he lives in Flag Mountain, Georgia, and is like a steward of that area and that cool mountain. Nimble nomad. Okay, this has been Forgotten Memoir or Neglected Memoir, part 3 of 3. There's also some neglected crit in here that I just kind of went through really quickly before. I'll look at those and then be done with this room for a while. At the end, I'll look at the paperback case. We'll come back in here for that. Literary fiction. If I ever get desperate, we'll look at all the weird stuff in the closet. Then we'll look into the kitty's brain and they will give us the meaning of life. No, look with your other eye, your third eye. So pretty. Here's your punk rock daughter. What are you? Yeah, maybe I should own more memoir because I'm a memoirist. But I haven't read all the ones I own, so I think I'm all right. There are more memoirs in the nonfiction paperback sections too. Give me. But memoir is a great genre. What are your favorite memoirs? I need to get This House of Sky by Ivan Doig. This feels incomplete without that one. This collection. I love that book. And letters and biographies seem memoir adjacent. I think they get mixed in here. Diaries. All right. Well, you know, everyone has a piece of the big story. That's why I like to hear them all. From the richest kid in San Francisco to the poorest beggar woman of Brazil. I want to know, you know, if you think about humanity as a collective in any way, it's everybody's story. It's all of our stories. So it's cool. You know, what are we up to today is what I think sometimes. Reading memoir. I once heard the comedian Maria Bamford called, I think it was by the comedian Patton Oswalt, an alien telling racist jokes about humans. Like speciesist. But I feel that way sometimes, seeing our fellow humans' antics. When I see YouTube videos, sometimes I'm like, oh, humans, what are you up to? All right, good old memoir. Have a great day, everybody. I got car problems and brokenness to deal with today. I got to figure out my life. What do you do when you can't work because you neglected to get your fingerprinting stuff updated and now they pause you? Come on, APS, let me come back. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to respond to the mayor about being on a committee. What is my life? I literally wrote a song called that, What Is My Life? Because really, seriously, sometimes I'm like, what is my life? Of course, we could all say that. That's why there's a memoir section in every bookstore and good home library to begin with. All right, y'all take care. See y'all. What is our lives? Excuse me, what are? Yes, have good grammar. This cat's so great. One time, the household lost her. There was a blackout, a long blackout, and she was just a little kitten, and we couldn't find her in this dark house, and we searched all over the dark house, the whole family, for this little black kitten we had just gotten. We could not find her anywhere. And finally, the last place anyone looked, of course, was in the back of a closet. She was there. How did you get in here, little Prisma? I watched a really cool independent movie last night called, I think it was independent. It seemed low budget, like it was almost a play, called The Man from Earth, about this man who is in a really intelligent academic department of archaeologists and people who know all kinds of things about history, professors, and they kind of surprise him with a surprise party because he's moving on for no reason, seemingly no reason. And he reveals to them that he's been alive since Stone Age times, that he just had some sort of genetic mutation that kept him alive. And Prismo, keep it decent. No offense, Squirrel, but your grooming is really impartial. I mean, partial. Like, you got to get your back. Get away from the cats. Yeah, he's been alive for 14,000 years. And so then the whole movie is like this play of him trying to explain himself and all the historical figures he's been and interacted with and the life he lived and how his memory works. And it's so cool. And is he for real or what? It's a great... I was like, oh, this is a new favorite of mine. How have I not heard much about this? The Man from Earth. Probably based on something. Very good. Anyway, all right. Memoir, story. It's all connected. Beautiful world of art and story. Order amidst the chaos. Beauty amidst just the tangles of everything. So good. People find a meaning in their own lives. I learned a lot from working at this bookstore, Bookworks, that did a lot of events, and listening to the memoirists talk about their lives, all their different approaches. You could tell that everybody had kind of turned their own life into like a canon of sorts that they were always examining and looking for symbolism in and turning things over. Memoir is a very specific sort of mindset for writing it. But that's cool. That means you're like giving your life meaning and order. You know? Like a secular version of the older generation in the Joy Luck Club. Like... you know, it all means something. This book really looms large in a lot of people's minds about what a memoir is. People think of a memoir as being an old guy talking about suffering as a kid. And really this book in particular, I've heard it used in a number of stand-up comedy bits. And people use it to talk dismissively about memoir. Memoirs are just about, well, this looks cool, but it's a novel. It was on the wrong shelf. Moving on. Easy solution. All right, take care, everybody. May wealth rain down on all of us. Or something. Positive good stuff.